Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to a Wednesday. Maybe I've been drinking the orange pop. We used to do this on Wednesday. It's a Monday. I'm not used to having this handsome man sitting to my left on a Monday huddle for PressProsMagazine.com. I appreciate you guys joining us. And we have a very special guest tonight, Garen Stokes, former coach of the Minster Wildcats, 2 state championships, 1 state runner-up, now the head coach at Dublin Coffman. And Sonny, you want to introduce Garen, and we'll bring him on to the show.
Well, a guy that I've enjoyed watching over the last 7 years at Minster in MAC football, because when you get to see people compete against the likes of Marion Local and Coldwater and Anna and St. Henry and Versailles and teams like that on a weekly basis, you really get to learn and know a lot about their attributes and their ability to share what they know with kids and developing programs. And I think people are going to enjoy tonight hearing Garen Stokes talk a little bit about the new challenge that he's undertaken at Dublin Coffman.
Fantastic.
A place that's familiar with winning, accustomed to winning, have an anticipation for winning and success. And it's hard for me to believe that he's going to disappoint anybody.
Yeah, me too. And he's only about, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles from where we're doing this show tonight. So, Garen, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it very much. And what's your daily schedule like, at Kaufman, and how much are you allowed to do with kids? It seems to me they kind of liberalized that a little bit this year post-COVID. Aren't you allowed to work with your guys more than maybe in the past?
Yeah, huge for us coming in as a new staff. Got the job late. So, yeah, they opened it up. It's full summer. So we go 4 days a week at 6 a.m. Alarm clock goes off at 4 a.m. and then you kick out of bed and you go attack, trying to install everything that a new language, new behaviors, new expectations, new everything. So we go Monday through Thursday and just try to go to work every single day.
You said something to me years ago. You may not remember this. You may. You grew up in Urbana, Ohio, Champaign County, played at Urbana High School, hill climber, later played at Urbana College for Coach Murgatroyd. But you told me one time a little bit of Urbana looks good on everybody. How's it looking at Dublin Coffman?
It's people are people, man. People are people. The environment you grow up in influences you. I know I'm grateful for my background. I really am. Like my parents, I'm grateful for my coaches that I got to play for, the teachers and the role models, my mentors. People are people, man. It is different environments, bring out different attributes. And but everybody wants to be a part of something special. Everybody wants to work really hard. Everybody wants to do the same stuff. It's just getting people to that point, which is a challenge for everybody. So, yeah, Urbana is. I'm extremely grateful for my upbringing.
But I've observed you for years, and Urbana is no question about it, a farm community, a blue-collar community, if you want. And I've always said this about you: your shade of blue is a little deeper in blue-collar than most of the people I've ever watched play and coach. That's just something that you have that's part of your DNA.
I think that goes back to the my family and the coaches that I learned from. That they, the number one thing, you get out of it what you put into it. You get out of it. I heard that saying all my life, and I think that's just the best thing you could possibly do for yourself is pour your heart and soul into something. And the best thing I think you can do as an adult is teach kids how to pour their heart and soul into something. And we don't apologize for that. We're a hard program to be in. It's not for everybody, but I think the kids that are tough enough to stick it out and grow through our program for 4 years have the ability to outwork people. I really believe that, and they have the ability to find themselves and know that they can do hard things. We're all not escaping hard things, so having that ability, that mentality to know that you can do that, I think establishing a blue collar mentality into people is one of the best gifts you could ever give somebody.
So there's this thought out there, Garen, that is not as appealing to kids now as it used to be, and you'd be an authority on that, having ingrained that obviously at Minster, where you won 2 state titles and were runner-up another time, and now you're starting over, trying to ingrain that work ethic and that attitude. I assume the 6 a.m. workout time is part of that. It establishes a culture, a mindset in your guys. You find out who wants it and maybe who doesn't. So you said in your first answer to Sonny that people are people. Are you finding out that here in the OCC, people are people just like they were back when you started at Minster, or are there some subtle changes?
You know, I got asked that question the other day. Like, is this the same way you took it over at Minster? The cultures are completely different. They both had really good things about them, and they both had really bad things about them. And you just kind of like play doctor and kind of listen and ask questions and evaluate and just observe and then diagnose it. And then you go be creative and try to find ways to fix issues and make it better. So yeah, people are people, man. I really believe that. You could teach a really rural kid to be hardworking and tough. You could teach a really suburban kid to be really hardworking and tough. It's just the environment, man. Any seed will plant and grow if you're watering and feeding and sunlight and all that stuff. So I really believe that all kids, if parents would get out of the kids' way, all kids would be willing to work really hard and do stuff. I really believe that if you challenge them hard enough, because that's just our human nature, man. That's humans. They want to be a part of something special with a group of people and go pour their heart and soul into stuff. So people are people. The kids in Minster, there was just less of them than there are at Dublin Coffman. So it's been a cool learning experience the last 3 months just to see that.
You know, the other thing that you almost touched on was it's human nature for every succeeding generation to make it easier than what they had it, and thinking they're doing people a favor. And, you know, I know from personal experience in sports, and Bruce would say the same thing. I know you would. It doesn't work that way, because there's always somebody there. And you and I talked about this one night after a game where you told me there's always somebody you're going to meet on Friday night that's willing to outwork and work harder than you are, and you have to be prepared for that.
Yeah, I just don't like. I don't believe in there is no shortcut to anything special. There is none. If you want a great marriage, man, that's going to be ugly and that's going to be grueling, and you're going to have to deal with some issues. Like if you want great relationships with people, like you got to invest a ton of time and effort and go through ups and downs. If you want a good football player, a good football program, like it's got to be that way. And there's always these like articles and stuff thrown at people saying, "Hey, this is take these 10 steps and you'll get there faster." There is no fast, man. There is no fast. I talk to my buddy Brooke all the time. We talk about it every single year. Like you feel like you're the worst coach in the country every single year. You feel like you got the worst team in the state every single year. It's hard. You want to quit. Like, but that is the beauty of it. Like it's hard. And you guys know, you guys are killing it at Press Pros. Like every single day you think about like, man, should I do this? Like this is hard. It's hard to do anything special, whatever it is. And I think sometimes our kids get the wrong message to say like, hey, you could take this shortcut or this path is easier and you'll get there. Like, okay, you're not getting it done the correct way if it's not extremely hard. That's just life, in my opinion.
You obviously came from a super competitive environment over in the MAC. The OCC is a monster, like 30-some teams. And, you know, we're learning it now as we expand into Central Ohio, which coincides with your arrival here at Kaufman. And Kaufman's had a great tradition over the years. I mean, they've Brady Quinn, Nick Goings, they've had some really good teams there. Tell me about the attitude in your kids and how they've adapted to your enthusiasm and the energy that you bring to the position.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see. They've got a really good tradition. They've had a really good tradition of winning a lot of regular season games. And these kids they've been incredible in the transition. There's been very few resistors. And anytime new expectations come, new culture, new identity, new verbiage, everything, like you get, people don't like change. And these kids have been incredible. We have really high quality kids. Now, they're really undertrained. They can become a lot less selfish, and we talk about that every single day. The difference between where I came from and where I'm at now is the kids knew each other, and it was a community built culture identity. Here at Kaufman, like these guys don't know each other's names. They're not playing for the love of Kaufman yet, or the love for each other yet, because they've worked so hard and done so many hard things together. The shared sacrifice that you get from doing that stuff, we haven't got there yet. So that's our chore. That's our chore. Can we get these big school, the big school culture to become really cohesive? And that to me is the funnest part. That's the super challenge for me. I love the football part of it. I love the X and O's and the challenge, but building a team of a group of kids that can actually love and care about each other. I mean, that to me is the coolest piece.
You know, in the introduction, I said something about enjoying watching you over the last 7 years compete against the likes of Chip Otten, certainly your buddy Nick Marino, Tim Goodwin, Ryan Jones, the last couple of years at Versailles, some really good coaches in there. And I would ask you to quantify, or not qualify, but quantify just how much that experience, those years against those kinds of teams, those kind of coaches, what you brought away from the MAC that's going to serve you well for the next 10 years.
Maybe the best environment you could possibly be in as a coach or as a person, just at any job, is where you have to be at your best.
Yeah,
like you're demanded. You have to be at your best, or you get embarrassed. You'll get crushed, and we've been there. And then you humble yourself. You go back in the locker room, the coach's office, and you go, hey, we got to go get better. We got to be more creative. We got to do this better. You got to do this better. Like that to me is how you're supposed to live. You're supposed to be in an environment where you're challenged and you struggle and you fail and you have to get back up and you have to keep going and you have to grow. Like that to me is I will always be in that situation. I will always be in that situation. I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. We don't really chase wins in our program. We're not ever going to brag because we went 10-0. We're not going to do that. We're trying to maximize people. And I really believe the only way you can truly maximize yourself, even like if you know that, like there's plenty of 10-0 teams that never get challenged. Like how do you know the ceiling of that team? For us, we want to get beat. Like we want to struggle. We want to have really bad practices and hard practices and really find ourselves, because that's where you're being forced to grow. And that to me is the beauty of high school football.
Not only did you win those 2 state titles, but if there's an example 1B to what you just said, it has to be Chris Schmidt and what he's underwent at New Bremen the last 3 or 4 years, just because he said that same thing to me so many times about bad practices and hard days and struggles and getting better. And this is how you learn to be successful. It's the very same thing. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because that's exactly what they went through to win the Division 7 title last year.
It's so beautiful too, Sonny, because it's not a new principle. This is not a new rule.
No.
Like this is a foundational principle that has been around for years and years and years and years and years. And for some reason, people want to like skip it. People want to not go through it. And then you never really know how good you could be, if you don't go through that. So we enjoy that part. It never feels good. There's days we want to quit, but that to me is the best part about it.
Garen Stokes is our guest, new coach at Dublin Coffman, and obviously a very successful coach at Minster for 7 seasons. You talked about the joy of building a team. That's what you like, is building a team. That's leadership. And I wonder your leadership style. Do you have some people that you've acquired your leadership principles, the things that you believe in that are foundational for you and what you do? Or would you say that's been developed more by trial and error rather than borrowed from somebody and maybe perfected and polished by you?
There's so many guys that have influenced how I carry myself, what I believe in, our value system, why we coach, why we do what we do. My high school head coach, Dave Caro, was head coach at Clear Fork High School. Huge influence. My dad, my grandpa, Brooke Cups, I got to coach with for a long time. So many our assistant coaches throughout the years, like a lot of reading, a lot of podcasting, a lot of just studying. And then it's just a lot of inner work. You got to be clear on who you are. And I feel like I know who I am. I know my flaws. I know what I'm good at. I know who I want to be. And that all plays into a leadership style that like fits me. And I don't really have a style. I mean, it's whatever it takes, really. If I got to be a jerk, I'll be a jerk. If I got to be super nice and put my arm around a kid, you have to do that. Like, there's no like leadership style for. It's whatever it takes, whatever is necessary to help kids reach their full potential. So a lot of people have poured into me to help me figure it out for myself, and I'm not even close to figuring it out for myself anyway. So we still got a lot of work to do.
I wondered if so many people have mentioned this year about the loss of the spring seasons last year and its effect on baseball and track and softball and things like that due to COVID. I wonder the fact that the shortened season last year is going to have any hangover effect with going forward in 2021. I've asked a couple of coaches about that just this week, and some say, I'm afraid of what we may discover. Others said, no, it's the nature of the game. Just like we're discussing here, you fight through those things, you work through it, you overcome it. It's just another obstacle. What's your personal fear about what you're going to find out on August the 21st?
I've never even thought about it, Sonny. We honestly are just trying to have a good practice tomorrow morning. That stuff is out of our control. I mean, I don't know. Well, if I don't know, nor do I care about it. Like, we're just going to observe tomorrow, film practice, observe it, try to make it better. If it's bad football, we'll go back the next day and try to make it a little bit better. I don't know. I don't really entertain any of that other stuff that we can't really control. We really just try to have good days, one at a time, and kind of make the best of it. I don't even know if I answered your question, but
what was it about the challenge at Kaufman that attracted you? You obviously could have stayed at Minster, and you could have continued to build there and achieve more there. And were you searching for a new challenge, or was there something in particular about the Kaufman opportunity that really tweaked something in you?
Yeah, there was really three things. I wrote it down in my journal a ton. Three things. Like, one, Minster, the people at Minster were so good to me, and the culture was so right. And I just felt like, man, this is the best time. This is the best time to leave it. They're going to be super successful in the future. They got young kids coming that are just studs, and they had all learned how to work. They all learned how to show up. They held each other accountable. They learned that they loved practicing the right way. It was just right. And then the second thing, like, I was driving an hour to Minster, so I was losing 2 hours a day in the car. And I got a daughter that's growing up, and I thought, man, it's time. It's time. I got to find a place where I can settle and be around my daughter. And then the challenge. I heard so much that, you know, Kaufman had so much success, and then you don't want to be the guy following the guy, and like that. Like, let's go. Like that to me is exciting. Like, what are we going to do? They're going to fire me? Is that the worst case that's going to happen? We don't win games at Kaufman and they fire me? Like, I'll be perfectly fine. So the challenge, the Minster was so good, my family, and then the challenge to go help kids on a bigger level and try to build a cohesive team with kids that may not know each other from different backgrounds that have, you know, just exciting. So those three things pretty much made that decision for me.
We got a live show, and I got a barking dog. So let me go take care of that, Garen. I'll let Sonny ask you this one. I'll be right back.
I want to ask you one thing going forward that I think people would be interested in hearing. Every sport that you almost bring up now, somebody wants to tweak. You know, they want to change things about baseball. They want to change things about basketball. Is there anything, in your opinion, that needs tweaked in football? You know, you hear, and I've written about this myself, as kids get bigger and faster, the hits get a little bit more violent. The size of the field stays the same. There's some conversation out there about rules changes and ways to tweak the game to make it safer and certainly maybe equity for more and different kinds of athletes. What's your opinion about tweaking football, if at all?
Sonny, I'm not smart enough to think like that. I'm not an innovative, creative guy about tweak. I think they're doing a good job with the limited contact stuff. I think they're doing a great job with that, making sure that meathead coaches are not banging kids like constantly all throughout the week and wearing them out and scaring people off from the game. But other than that, man, I talk a lot about this with our coaches. I think football is one of the – it's not the only thing, but it's one of the few really hard things for kids to do still. That we're insecure 13, 14, 15-year-old boy has to go put his body on the line and run into another boy at full speed. Just the amount of training and thought process that goes into that, just to get kids to do that is unnatural. So I think football is one of the few hard things left for kids to do. And I don't know if you tweak it too much, you lose that aspect. And that scares me for future. I just remember crying and being scared and showing up to practice and biting down on my mouthpiece so hard. Like that turned me into who I am. So if you tweak it too much, you get away from some of the best parts of the game gives to kids.
And yet, there are people concerned about there are parts of the country where the numbers are down. It's good in our area, in West Central Ohio still. And the question is, how do you attract kids to want to work that hard? Just like we opened this interview tonight. If you get the parents, you get the adults, you get all those people out of the way, those obstructions out of the way, kids will work hard and be attracted to football and that kind of a challenge. You agree?
Yeah, and there's so many other options out there now. You can do so many different things. But to me, it's really cool. Like, what's that say? Instead of being the victim and like, oh, these kids are not doing this, they're doing that. Like, you just got to be good. Like, people will be attracted to really good. That's it. Like, whatever it is, people be attracted to really good. So be really good at your job, and you'll attract who you want to attract. So that to me is exciting. Like, if our kids aren't showing up, then be better. That to me is how you should be. So.
Garen, what's the complication of putting a staff together? Obviously, so much of what you do is trust, and you need guys you trust to employ your methods. And I assume high school is not like college where you can bring everybody with you from Minster. How do you go about identifying people that can implement the kind of culture that you want implemented and buy into what you're doing?
Yeah, really hard, because any successful head coach has a great staff. Any one of them. They have loyal foxhole people that do things the right way with them. So you can't do this. You can't do this as like a basketball coach. You could coach 5 guys, 8 guys by yourself. As a football coach, you need position coaches and coordinators, and like you need a great group of people. But I'm extremely direct with them. I'm extremely upfront with them with who I am, our value system, what I value, how I talk, how I walk, how I act, the demands of what we expect. And then we just ask, like, do you fit us? Do you fit us? Like, because it's not for everybody. Being around me is not for everybody. Being around our coaching staff is not for everybody. But the biggest thing we look for really is are you humble enough to learn? Are you humble enough to learn? Because we're going to be challenged. We're going to struggle, and you're going to have to get better. You're going to have to get better, and it's not going to be easy. We're going to fight. We're a bunch of guys with a bunch of testosterone. Like, it's going to be a struggle, and you got to be really humble. You got to be really unselfish. We came up with this question when I was interviewed. Like, are you willing to take a charge? Are you the guy on the basketball floor that's going to be willing to take a charge? And that's we want our coaching staff to be just, I got it, guys. Like, hey, what do you need? I got it. I'm not looking for stipends. You will never fit around me if you're chasing money. But you better be really humble, and you better be really unselfish. And anybody, you guys can learn X's and O's to coach high school football. Like, anybody can learn that. It's not complex. But having the character traits of being humble enough to learn and unselfish enough to just constantly give is pretty rare. So they're hard to find. Really quality coaches are really hard to find.
And how much of getting your program implemented at every level, do you tackle that in year one, or are you concentrating varsity the first year? Because I know you'd ideally like to have a sameness to what you do 7, 8, freshman team, JV team, varsity team. Is that a bigger bite of the apple later on, or is it, nope, let's dive in and do it all right now?
So it's been really interesting because there's multiple junior high schools in Dublin. So I'm still kind of figuring out that won't get touched. We'll try to develop relationships with all those kids, but that won't get touched. I'm really not even sure of the rules of how that goes yet. But I know 9 through 12 is the same standards, the same accountability, the same language. Our coaching staff is trying to get as aligned as possible going into year one. But year one's just going to be a mess. Like that, there's just everything so new. And every new experience, the assistant coach is looking around that hasn't been with us going, how's he going to handle this? And I'm looking at him like, how's he going to handle this? And the kids are looking at us like, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? So, but we just try to fight every single day to try to get it as aligned as possible. Everybody going the same direction, man, pulling the same way instead of, year one's crazy because you're going to have some resistors, you're going to have some guys in conflict and question, and you're going to have some guys that jump on board right away. So they were trying to fire me week 2 in Minster. I think they're trying to fire me now probably at Kaufman. So it's great. It's great. It's year one. It's messy. So we're excited about it.
Well, you're clearly energized by it, and it's fun your energy is infectious to us. We're looking forward to covering you at Kaufman, and I can only imagine how infectious it is to your players, to the parents of your players, to your coaching staff. And we really appreciate your time tonight and joining us and laying out your vision for Kaufman football, and really more so your vision for leadership and for young people, investing in young people. That's what, we hope Press Pros is about. And it's clearly that's what you're about. And, while we may do it in different ways, it leads to really good things if we invest in young people.
And, I'll add this. I've always enjoyed your perspectives about winning and the very things we talked about here tonight. And if there's anybody out there who has listened to this interview and said, there's a guy I think I'd like to have my kid play for, there's the value of football right there, because there's a product of football sitting on the other side of the screen in Garen Stokes. Good on you, my friend, and best of luck at Kaufman this fall. We can't wait to see what you do next.
You guys are the best. I love you, Sonny. Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Garen. We'll see you soon.
See ya.
All right. There's Garen Stokes, head coach at Dublin Coffman. That's my first exposure to him. We'll take people behind the scenes a little bit. I used to play fast pitch softball, and I played with a gentleman by the name of Chris Stokes. And Chris is of my era, and I don't think of myself as old enough to have a son who would be the head coach at Dublin Coffman, but Garen is Chris's son, and Chris was a tremendous athlete and a tremendous guy, and I can see where Garen gets a lot of his ability, more so a lot of his energy.
And I've known Chris Stokes for a long time, because in writing basketball, I don't know how many years he's officiated high school basketball, but he's one of the very highly respected officials over in West Central Ohio, works the MAC, Shelby County League, the MBL, up and down I-75. So I see him quite often, still working. So does a great job. And I was like you. I was surprised one day when I said, hey, you happen to be in relation to Garen Stokes? He said, yeah, a lot of relation.
Well, Urbana was blessed with some really good athletes back then. Doug Rutan and Mark Franz, I think. A tremendous baseball team, made it to the state tournament, and Chris was a big part of that. So they were very, very athletically talented back then, basketball and in baseball and in football. So we wish Garen the best. We're happy to be able to have a familiar face as we branch into Central Ohio this year with our coverage of the OCC. And obviously a lot of the OCC people will see a familiar face on the Press Pro side with Steve Blackledge from formerly of the Dispatch, who's done preps in Central Ohio for 34 years. Blackie has been a tremendous asset to us and has really augmented our coverage of Central Ohio. We're really looking forward to being a part of the OCC scene this year.
There's no such thing as a guarantee in sports. I don't have to tell you that. But I can't guarantee what kind of success he'll have his first year, but he will make an impact on area football in Central Ohio. Yeah. Now, you can't listen to him. You can't be around him, because, as he said, you may come in on day one and say, I don't want any part of this, or we don't want any part of you. Yeah. He is blatantly honest about, do you fit with us? Because here's what we expect of you. He does have expectations, which I think is what made him almost immediately successful. Now, he took over a good program at Minster. The guy who was there before him is now at Massillon, Washington High School.
Nate Moore?
Nate Moore. So it wasn't like he came in and picked up, the remnants. Nate had a pretty good program. But I do know this, that he clashed with a few people, in Minster and within his program of kids, as he said, who didn't know how to work, didn't know how to be unselfish, didn't know how to care for each other. And those were his three big things, right? You will do these things before we have any success at all here and enjoy this whole process of playing football. And this is what he's made of. This is his MO, and they'll see that soon enough at Kaufman.
Well, I don't think you and I are ever one to really hide that we buy into those values in our own lives.
That's how we grew up.
on the site. You often written about your parents. I've written about my father. We've written about our background, and we're in a society now that I think every society is served well by guardrails, by limits, by discipline, by expectations clearly defined. And I think kids definitely excel under those situations, because what do those things convey? They convey, I care about you. I mean, it's very easy to allow people to go outside the boundaries, outside the lines, because it takes courage to confront that. It takes caring to bring people back within the lines. And so those are all things that may be looked upon nowadays as intolerant or other aspects of that. To me, those things convey caring, they convey compassion, and they convey that you want the best from somebody, and everybody gets better when they're challenged. And that's clearly came through as Garen's, one of the foundational values that Garen has is to challenge kids, and we all produce more when we're challenged.
Expectation is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
You won't ever hear this anymore, but and I like to tell the story about my high school baseball coach taking me out of the game pitching as a sophomore. And before I left the mound, he says, take a long look at this thing we're standing on, because it's going to be a long time before you see it again. And I was shocked by that, Sure. Well, today, if you went home and said, Dad, here's what he said to me, they'd be calling the school board and the attorney.
Yeah.
My dad looked at me and says, sounds to me like you better get better.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know a story similar to that. Jay Burson was driving back from playing summer basketball against the Huggins brothers, Bobby Huggins and some of his brothers. And he was complaining about, I didn't get this call and I didn't get that call. And for those who know Jay's a pretty small guy and pretty diminutive guy. And he was belly aching and complaining and whining. And his dad, Jim Burson, who was a great coach for a long time at Muskingum, is no longer with us. Jim looked at him and he said, well, hell with it then. Just give up. So in other words, I'm not going to listen to your whining.
Yeah.
If that's how soft you are and you're going to give up, and anybody who saw Jay play through a broken neck at Ohio State knows he wasn't soft. But I think all kids need to hear sometimes, look, I don't want to hear you complaining. And buy-in is a beautiful thing, because that's the only way you find out what you're capable of, is if you have to push through some kind of a limit. So it sounds to me like the kids at Kaufman are very fortunate to have Garen Stokes challenging them to do that.
Other things you want to talk about this week in sports?
Well, I'm a father of 3 daughters. All 3 play sports. I'm disappointed in our governor. That may have come through in my column that's running on Press Pros right now. I do not
will be soon.
Or will be soon. I do not have a problem with name, image, and likeness players getting paid at Ohio State. I think it's the right thing, but I will say I think it's going to be disastrous for college athletics. That doesn't mean they shouldn't do it, but for Governor DeWine to use an executive order today to enact name, image, and likeness legislation, which would have been enacted anyway in the state budget in 3 days, I thought was a misplacing of priorities.
Grandstanding.
I would like to have seen a Republican conservative purportedly governor stand up for a bill proposed by Press Pros area's Jenna Powell of Arcanum. Her bill is called the Protect Women's Sports Act. And again, I'm a father of 3 daughters, so I may not be real what's the word I'm looking for here, Sonny? Neutral in this. But I don't believe high school sports should have the threat of biological boys playing girls sports. I don't want any girl hurt in girls basketball, in girls soccer, in a sport where biological men have a physical advantage because of their genetics. I think the governor needed to, if he was going to use an executive order for something sports related, that would have been a better use of his executive power.
2 things stood out to me when I heard him today. When he said, I didn't want it to become a recruiting disadvantage for Ohio schools. Seriously, Mike, you can barely handle the politics. Don't get into recruiting. To
that I would say Alabama has name, image, and likeness. And until he signed that order, Ohio did not. And JT Tuomilau, the kid from Washington that they can't live without, which he might be a great player, I don't know. But he canceled his visit to Alabama after name, image, and likeness legislation hit a snag in the State House. So it's clearly not that big of a deal to the kid. He knew it's going to get done. It's clearly going to get done at the national level, at the NCAA level, or at the state level. and it was a grandstand play by Mike DeWine, and I just think that's beneath him as governor, or should be.
Second issue.
Yes.
Have you had enough NBA basketball for the summer? Because I think the NFL training camps start next week. We haven't even gotten to the NBA finals.
No, we haven't. I honestly have not watched an NBA basketball game.
Only on ESPN highlights.
For more than a channel surfing, there's a game. Yeah. But I have not sat and watched a 3-minute chunk, even on SportsCenter. I have not sat and watched a 3-minute chunk of NBA basketball in at least 2 years. Once the Cavs ceased to be good, I lost interest. And once the NBA became uber political, I lost what little interest I had left.
But it's July.
I know that. I know that. COVID.
It's July.
It's COVID.
And
everything's COVID, brother.
And they're pushing this thing. Yeah. I caught a little Stephen A. Smith.
Boy.
Whatever.
Screaming A.
Wow. How much can you push this narrative when clearly I don't believe that there's that many people in the country hanging on whether the Clippers make it through tonight or not.
I have nothing to add because I don't know. I don't literally know nothing about it.
We're sitting in the midst of Plain City, Ohio.
Well, I know that my
how can it matter here?
My in-laws are from Phoenix, Arizona, and were big Suns fans for years and years, and the Suns were not relevant for a decade and a half, and now they're on the cusp of making the NBA Finals. So that is what I know and why I know it. Otherwise, I know nothing. I'm Sergeant Schultz on the NBA.
Let me say this about those teams. I can name
Thank you, Jerry.
I can name
Look at that, Jerry Snodgrass with the message.
I can name you a few people who played for those Phoenix Suns. Alvin Adams, for one.
Alvin Adams, the Van Arsdale twins.
The Van Arsdales, Tom and Dick Van Arsdale. Yeah. I'm not sure I can name anybody that plays for them now except that Booker kid.
Yeah, Booker.
Garfield Hurd.
Yeah, Devin Booker. DeAndre Ayton. That's all I know. So, yeah. So, I'm looking forward to the fall. I'm looking forward to MAC football, cross-county conference football.
I think you're going to
Three Rivers.
I think people out there be interested. As somebody asked me here this afternoon, what's next? We've been doing a lot of amateur baseball in June, and that's fun. And I think some people maybe misunderstand the relevance of why we do that, because these are little kids that are 10, 12, and 14 years old. Not that 14, you're a little kid, but it's kind of nice because June, people are traveling. There are no high school sports. It's downtime. Why not?
Why not
give a little bit of a profile and a spotlight?
I think it primes the pump. I think kids get a little bit of coverage early on, and they say, "Hey, kind of like that." And if it helps get them interested, great.
But starting next week, I think people, and particularly here in Central Ohio, will appreciate some of the preseason profiles we'll be doing on kids playing football.
Yeah, Garen Stokes for sure. We have a new coach at Upper Arlington. We have a new coach at Hilliard Davidson.
Some of the stories and some of the people that people are going to want to know more about before August the 21st. Volleyball, for instance. And,
Sonny Stiles at Pickerington, the son of former Buckeye Lorenzo Stiles. He's a 5-star recruit, highly recruited. So, Steve Blackledge and I will be writing a lot of Central Ohio football and identifying the athletes that you'll be hearing about in the fall.
And that's our plan for July. And it's amazing how quickly the month of July goes by. And I was in Arcanum today. We were talking about Jenna Powell a moment ago. Arcanum is a Division VI football town program, but they probably have a kid there who's going to turn out to be the #1 passer in small school football this year. You and I
had a spirited debate about that.
Well, I looked at the records today from last year. Yeah. There's not much debate about who led the cross county conference in the passing yardage. This Shondemeyer.
Who won the cross county conference though?
Well, okay.
My guy won. My guy won. Mr. Sarver at Tri-Village won.
Your guy won, but there's a kid over there named Bryce Shondemeyer that's going to be an excellent story to follow this year because his dad has coached for years was a big midline option guy, and I remember him telling me one time, I asked him, why do you even bother with passing scrimmages? Well, he got the message, because his son's putting it up 50 times a game right now. And
well, that sounds like who were the boys from Kenton that kept the Mauch brothers? Yeah, right. They kept throwing it around up there.
Right.
So it's Lane Sarver?
Lane Sarver.
Lane Sarver is an interesting
at Tri-Village.
Question to me is Lane Sarver's college future as a quarterback or as a basketball player?
Have you seen him shoot that mid-range jumper?
I have.
I don't think there's a very little question to me what his future is going to be.
You think it's football?
I think it's going to be basketball.
Basketball, yeah. I think Lane Sarver's a tremendous basketball player.
I would pay $20 to watch him play basketball.
Yeah, he's a nice player, but I'll tell you what, he's an
athlete.
He is. And by the way, as a safety, he will hit you, man. He laid the wood to Loramie last year.
I just saw Jerry Snodgrass blink on here a moment ago, and Jerry and I have had this conversation so many times over the years about how ironic the number of Lane Sarvers, Bryce Schondemeyers, kids from schools like Covington and Minster and Coldwater, Brady Klingshirns, and people like that become standouts way out of the spotlight of Division I and Division II in sports in Ohio. They're not the kids that end up in these recruiting websites, and yet they're the kids that go on in life and become uber successful.
Well, Marion Locals won a boatload of state titles. Marion Locals won a boatload of state titles with those guys.
One Division I football player in the history of Marion Local, John Dirksen, who's at Notre Dame right now. But these kids just win, and they go out and they establish themselves as successful, just like I described Bryce Schondemeyer. That experience follows you through life. Doesn't matter what you do. That competitive value that you get from interscholastic sports. So
no doubt.
Those little schools like that and the profiles that we're going to be sharing with people about who the kids are that you're going to see and read about and want to follow in the fall. That's what's coming in the next 6 weeks on Press Pros.
Yes, sir. And so we appreciate you guys watching tonight, watching on the replay. We hope we've grabbed some interest from some of you Kaufman Shamrocks tonight. And
by the way, your basement is hot.
You got a tremendous football coach there. By the way, my basement is hot and my house is hot because my furnace blew up today. So no air conditioning here at home. So Mr. Stokes, Mr. Fulks and I are going to go find a place that's air conditioned.
We're going to go
have a bite to eat.
Find a drugstore and find some deodorant.
We might have to do that as well. So I hope all you guys enjoyed the show tonight. We appreciate you joining us. Tell your friends about Press Pros and thank our sponsors when you're out and about and see them. And encourage people that you know who appreciate what we appreciate about high school sports, the values and the hard work, the delayed gratification, and all those excellent principles. If they would like to be an advertiser on Press Pros, we'd love to affiliate with them and help market their business. So thanks very much. Everybody have a good night. We'll see you again next week.
Get to bed, Truman.
Go to bed, Truman.